and a lot of news to get into. And we're going to start with this. This from the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, available exclusively at WrestlingObserver.com. The issue that came out yesterday. If CM Punk is to come back to pro wrestling, it looks like it will be here, that meaning WWE. He was very political in his speech at the last Starrcast, talking about how he's grown up, doesn't have animosity towards WWE, and said that if they were to call, he would listen. We'd already reported that Punk's rep had gone to Fox to try and push him to be the co-host of the FS1 talk show, but WWE wasn't interested in him for that, even though he'd probably be good at it. Really, him doing that show would only make sense if he's going to come back to wrestle, because the minute he's on a WWE broadcast, the people will want him to wrestle again. So hiring him to host the show would immediately make the show about him rather than the news. It's basically the feeling that even though WWE went after him hard with the lawsuit that cost him a ton of money, 7 figures, WWE is the place he feels he can make the most money. Given he's about to turn 41 next month, and main eventers are making, for the most part, more now than they were during Punk's heyday, and the age makes the clock tick about how long your window to make that money is, you can see the mentality. Punk did make a lot of money as a babyface in his last few years because his t-shirts were huge, did well as champion, as a heel, although he did not once say he made a lot less money because when he turned, his merch sales went away. Plus, he's seen more guys on the roster that are being allowed to work fewer dates. The impression from WWE is that they believe he wants back in, but right now, it's nothing they are counting on doing. He did get an opening offer from AEW some time back, but then made himself scarce and was negative to them in that Mark Raimondi interview, and as best we can tell, there has been no contact since. What does this mean? Well, I guess we'll find out. As we talked about yesterday, this Fox show is a Fox show. It's not a WWE show. And so, conceivably, Fox could hire CM Punk to do this show, and WWE would not necessarily they would have a say in it, but it's very much like WWE 2K, where the video game company, they choose the cover star of the video game. And several times, they have chosen a cover star that WWE did not want to have anything to do with. Warrior being a prime example, Sting, and at the end of the day, when they did that, those guys ended up coming back to WWE. So, we'll see what this means for CM Punk. God only knows. He could show up at AEW Wednesday. He could show up on that Fox show. He's waited until the right time to make his move, and that is today, this week. So we'll see what happens. Jim, what do you make of this? We'll start with you.
You know, if Punk doesn't show up this week, so much focus is put on October 2nd and this upcoming week, and we're going to see a lot happen this week. We had Joe Koff on just a couple of days ago. He mentioned that since its inception, Ring of Honor has produced 480 hours of wrestling content. Today we call that a slow week. But I think that Punk, to really maximize, once this newness wears off and the momentum wears down, somebody is going to need something to bring that excitement level back up. That thing could very easily be CM Punk.
What do you make of this, Mike?
So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I'm trying to process this now. So this sounds like a decision on Punk's end. It's being at least written like it's about more about money than anything else.
I don't know what it's about.
Okay, because the way that was read, it was like, well, it seems to me that's where he could make the most money, which would seem to be the most important thing. Then that would be a very important thing. And I think of what Les Thatcher says about, we're all whores. It's just a matter of establishing price. And this is a nice buffer if it happens, because you have Fox in the middle. If he's employed by Fox on this show and still talking about WWE and doing so in a positive light, certainly not a investigative style, that's a nice way to maybe kind of ease him back in. But I am very surprised that, especially with the options that we have, especially with the reverence that he would get from his fan base and from other people, that he would consider this. He not only lost a lot of money in a lawsuit, he lost a friend. brand. And I don't know if this necessarily, he's got anything to prove to them and vice versa. I don't think they necessarily need each other, even though, as Jim said, WWE is certainly going to need the spark as well as AEW once things kind of, ease off for a little bit. We are going to need some surprises, maybe some people to show up when contracts run out and things like that. It's just a natural thing that's going to be able to spark things. And, him almost sitting out for longer, to me, would actually make him more valuable as we see the direction that things go and as we go into the new year. So I got to be honest, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So again, I haven't really processed it, but I am surprised by that, and I will certainly lose $100. I'm sure, Brian, as you will to others as well, for saying that I never thought I'd see CM Punk and WWE back in good graces with each other to this type of level.
Well, it depends on the story. If Fox is hiring him to do that show because they are in charge of that show, then he's not going back to WWE at this point. He would be a Fox employee.
But
he would be a non-WWE guy,
but Brian,
doing a WWE show.
But that's it. As we talked about that show yesterday, this is not going to be, he's going to be the anchor as a ESPN anchor would be a Bob Lee or somebody like that sitting there on the set of news talking about WWE. It's probably going to be a WWE, obviously a lighter show, more of a promotional vehicle, something where he can talk to Chicago Blackhawks players that love the WWE and things like that. I mean, it would be a natural thing that way. And to be honest, I never even thought they would get to that point. So again, even though he'd be working for Fox, he would still actually have to be, again, in good graces with WWE, and they would have to be good with this. Now, I guess we'll have to see what happens, but I'm very surprised with all this.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, like I mentioned, 2K made decisions that WWE was not cool with. That was what was in their contract. They get to choose who the cover guy is.
Here's the thing. Phil Brooks, the person, and CM Punk, the character, have created a public image of being anti-corporate, of being anti-WWE. He did it in storylines, and he did it in real life. Sure enough. He goes back, does that harm some of his image to that fan base that really likes him, to stick it to, not Becky Lynch, but stick it to the man?
How would it not? And Jim and Brian and everybody else out there, on God's green earth, how would it actually not, especially when you have the type of options where you could do a hybrid of working with ROH and New Japan. You could do all New Japan. You could do all AEW. You can do AEW and 0-1, whatever you wanted to do. You have such options now where you don't have to, quote, work for the man, even though you're probably working for another version of the man, but again, a more palatable version to some people that have been backing him for so long. It's difficult for me to believe that it actually won't do some damage to some of his base.
If he comes back, is CM Punk going to be seen as a sellout?
Of course. Kidding me? People are already talking about that.
Yeah.